Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna. Here we are. Bhagavad-gita, here it is. That's our name, because we are reading Bhagavad-gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my name is Lavanga Latika. We are finishing the 6th chapter today. We are reading the very last verse, text 47. It's been an interesting chapter, and this one kind of brings out a sort of a conclusion, I would say. And I will read the Sanskrit. And if you study Bhagavad-gita in the way that you learn some verses by heart, this one is certainly on the list. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shradhavan bhadyate yomang same yukta tamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, this is Krishna speaking, thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So this is Krishna speaking. So when something is Krishna's opinion, that it's not the same thing as anybody's opinion, because Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when he expresses his opinion, then we listen up. And yoga, the meaning of the actual word means to connect with the Supreme. And when Krishna says that person, that yogi, who has great faith, abides in him, thinks of him, and renders transcendental loving service to Krishna, he's the most intimately united with me, connected in yoga, is the highest of all. So there we can understand that yoga is a process, and the meaning, the goal of that process is to connect with the Supreme. And that can be done, as we have heard, as we have gone through the chapter, in different ways. There are different processes, and they have, of course, different practices and also slightly different goals, because the Supreme can be realized in 3 features. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Brahman is the more impersonal realization that everything is spirit. Paramatma is the localized aspect of Krishna within our hearts. And Bhagavan, that's Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And getting to know him in that loving, devotional relationship of service, that is complete self-realization. And in that way, it is complete perfection, because in this human form of life, we have the great opportunity to realize ourselves beyond this material body, beyond this material identification, beyond this material conception of life. I will read the purport. The word bhadyate is significant here. Bhadyate has its roots in the verb bhaj, which is used when there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaj. Worship means to adore and to show respect and to honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Yes, so this is interesting, because we often speak of worship. When we think of religion, when we think of God, then worship, and even going further, obeying the laws of God and the commandments of God. And that's a kind of religious thing. And then when Prabhupada speaks about worship, showing respect and honor, that you do that to a respectable man or demigod, we're not so familiar with that, but we can see in the structures of society, even today. I live in Sweden, and our constitution is a democracy, but still somehow or another we have retained a king. We have retained royalty, and he's considered to be I don't have these terms in English, but like the chief person. We have a statsminister, which I guess translates closely to prime minister, and he does the work of uniting the government, but then somehow the king comes in a more ceremonial aspect, and at certain times and certain places, then the royals turn up and add their glamour to the occasion. And then you can see there are certain rules of etiquette, the way you show respect, whether you like them personally or not, or whether you're interested or not. It's just simply etiquette. And if you don't follow it, nothing much happens. But it's thought of as discourteous here, it said. And then we can turn to God in the same way. We worship him, we offer him, we follow the rituals, we follow the cultural aspects of religion. And that's one step in coming closer to the Supreme. But that's not bhakti, and that's not what Prabhupada is describing here as the bhajati, which means it's a more intimate, personal thing, and it's also a thing that is deeply rooted in our very nature. And that very nature is sometimes perceived as being a bit distant, because when we're in this material world, we pick up another identification, another sort of identity, but that identity is there only as long as we're in one particular body. So I can easily identify as a middle-aged Swedish woman right now, because that's the body I'm in. But I also have distinct memories of having a child's body or a teenager's body, and then I identified with them. In previous lives, I have no way of knowing whether I was Swedish or English or Indian or American or something else, whether I was a man or a woman, a human being or an animal. These things change, and that identification changes with them, but our actual nature, the spirit soul, that is eternal. Right now, it's a bit covered, but it's still there. And therefore, Bhakti Yoga, any yoga actually, when we're human beings, we want to realize ourselves, we take to a yoga process. But if we go deeply enough into it, we contact our spiritual nature. Our spiritual nature starts to wake up. And that's that's all right. We want to realize ourselves. But when we come to that point of that realization, included in that realization is our relationship to the Supreme. Because without that, we don't have a full understanding of who we are. It's just like if you're a child, you're not independent. You're part of a family. You have a mother and a father, hopefully. Of course, there are situations where maybe the mother and father have died, or they have been separated due to war and all of those things. But a little newborn child has no ability to be independent. They're always dependent on someone. And we, in a spiritual sense, we are always connected to the Supreme. But in this world, we forget it. And self-realization includes realization of the Supreme, because we're never independent. We're never separate from him. So that is the highest level of yoga, and that is Krishna's opinion. And when Krishna gives us his opinion, then we listen very carefully. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms this as follows: Ya ishang purushang shakshad atma prabhavamishwaram na bhajantya vajananti stahanad bhrashta patantyadaha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. That's our present condition. Being in this material world means there was a fall down, because this is not really our spiritual position. And connecting again, or trying to connect to the Supreme through different paths of yoga or religion, and then not coming to that point of rendering service and connecting to that duty to the primeval Lord, we cannot hold on to our level of spiritual realization. In this verse also the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or any other common living entity. The word avajananti used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is also found in the Bhagavad-gita. Avajananti mang mudha. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad-gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. Yes. So there's a very, we have a history of disagreeing with the impersonal philosophers, and Prabhupada will draw our attention to that here and there, especially in verses like these that have been misinterpreted, and as I think I have said it before, as individuals, it's up to us what we do with this life, whether we turn to the Supreme or not, whether we take up an impersonal philosophy or not, whether we take up a materialistic worldview or not. That's we have that independence, we have that free will. But if such worldview, if such a philosophy becomes predominant in such a way that it becomes more difficult for people in general to take to spiritual life, to take to Krishna consciousness, then it's actually quite important to question it, to bring it up. And because as much as we all have a free will, in many senses we don't use it. We're born in a certain place, our life goes on, we grow up, we find ourselves in a certain niche in society, sometimes without any plan or any purpose or anything like that. And therefore, as followers of Krishna, we find it important, I find it important, to make sure that the opportunity of connecting to Krishna is there. Everybody will do whatever they want, and I personally have no intention of convincing somebody who doesn't want to be convinced. The thing is, though, it's very difficult to make a free choice in life when we don't know our options. And that most deep spiritual real option as a human being is self-realization and realization of the Supreme. And therefore we want to make it accessible, and we also want to question those mindsets that create a barrier, that creates a hindrance, that makes it more difficult to connect to Krishna in that way. The culmination of all kind of yoga practices lies in Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of Bhakti in Bhakti Yoga. Yoga actually means Bhakti Yoga. All other yogas are progressions toward the destination of Bhakti Yoga. From the beginning of Karma Yoga to the end of Bhakti Yoga is a long way of self-realization. Karma Yoga, without fruited results, is the beginning of this path. When Karma Yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called Jnana Yoga. When Jnana Yoga increases in meditation on the Supersoul by different physical processes, and the mind is on Him, it is called Ashtanga Yoga. And when one surpasses the Ashtanga Yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is called Bhakti Yoga, the culmination. Factually, Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name, Karma Yoga, Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, or Jhana Yogi, Raja Yogi, Hatha Yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga, just as, when we speak of Himalayan, we refer to the words highest mountain, on which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. Yes, that's why when we read these books, I like to read, one part, one verse or a few verses, and zoom in on that specific point being made there. But it's also very important to get the bigger picture. So here Prabhupada makes that illuminates how yoga, whenever you step into one level or one practice or one level of realization, it gets a certain name. Karma yoga, it's with the activities. When those activities go deeper into the knowledge seeking aspects, it becomes jnana yoga. When that deepens, when your meditation deepens and that becomes the practice, it's called jnana yoga, and so on. But it's not actually that, they are different as such. Yoga is yoga. Yoga means a path of the soul back to the Supreme. And the completion of that path is Bhakti Yoga, where we actually connect with the Supreme. But contained in that process, all these other aspects are present, and therefore when we hear about them from Bhagavad-gita, our understanding deepens, and our ability to fix our activities, fix our mind, fix our faith, actually getting a deep trust in Krishna's process deepens by such study and such knowledge. And like if you take the Himalayan mountain as an example, then the whole structure is that mountain, but Mount Everest is the highest peak. So yoga, the whole process is yoga, but the highest perfection when we complete it is Bhakti Yoga. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyama Sundara, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose little lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is garlanded with flowers. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahmajyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Raman, Nrsimha, Varaha and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. So yeah, it's not just a theory. Krishna is that actual person, and when we hear about his form, his names, his attributes, his qualities, his activities, his devotees, his abode, everything in connection to Krishna. It is perfect, and it is very attractive, and it's very, real. And that reality is there, it's available for all of us. But we reach it when we take to Krishna's process, because if we don't take to Krishna's process, then we are doing something else, and that will have a different result. But it's not a mechanical process. If we just do that, we read the pages of the Bhagavad-gita, 700 pages, we do the mantra, we do the job, and then bam, Krishna is there. No, Krishna is a person, and he reveals himself when he pleases, but he is very pleased when he sees that a devotee makes that endeavor. So then it's not just a pretty picture of this effulgent Lord in his yellow silken garments and his fragrant flower garlands and that whole description of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is actually there, and we can actually realize it. But unless we know about it, and unless we also know the process and gain some faith in it, then we won't be doing it. We will keep our attention fixed in this material world, and we will stay here. So therefore, we learn these things from Krishna. We hear about these things, and we put them into practice. This stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by Bhakti Yoga, as confirmed in all Vedic literature. Yasya deva para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyete katita yaretha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Svetashvatara Upanishad. Bhaktirasya bhajyanang tad ihamutro padhineirasye namushmin manakalpanam etad eva neishkarmyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclination, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Naishkarmya. Gopalatapani Upanishad. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. So what can I say? This is the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. This is the end of the 6th chapter, and this first 6 chapter are a little bit the introduction, a little bit the foundation of Bhagavad-gita, but very important foundation and knowledge is found. We as eternal spirit soul, as Satchitananda living entities, persons, we are able to have that personal relationship with Krishna. It says here as the He's the perfect child, husband, friend and master. Whatever relationship we are looking for, it's basically because we have a relationship with Krishna that is the most fulfilling and deep personal relationship we can find, and that which we're always looking for in different ways. We're always looking for love in the wrong places, they say. So Bhagavad-gita is that. It gives us that knowledge, it gives us that practice, and it gives us also the knowledge of how what we're doing now may lack a little bit. We have that vague, intuitive feeling sometimes in this world, but it's very difficult to focus it in such a way that it will have an effect, that there will be a change in our lives. And therefore Krishna comes here. Krishna speaks the Bhagavad-gita, and he leaves it for us so we can find it even here 5,000 years later. And Bhagavad-gita is not a very complicated book. It's not very, it's just one book that comes from a conversation between two persons on the meaning of life and how to do it practically and spiritually. And this verse sums it up, all of it, in a very nice way. And if you have your own Bhagavad-gita, you can go back to it and you can read it again. Read it a few times, let it sink in. And hopefully you will find that determination and faith that is kind of required to take to the process seriously. And in the meanwhile, we will continue reading Bhagavad-gita and seeing this knowledge and seeing different aspects, seeing it from different angles, and seeing different parts of the process, so that we will be able to apply it properly. And yes, I'm very happy to be here with Bhagavad-gita today. Thank you so much. We have links below. You can buy your own Bhagavad-gita. No home is complete without at least one Bhagavad-gita, I would say. You can visit the Hare Krishna temple, and please bring any questions you would have. There is so much room in the comment field, and you're most welcome. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,